Lieutenant Governor of California Gavin Newsom attends a rally in Monterey on Tuesday, May 29, 2018 during a campaign stop as candidate for governor of California. Vern Fisher, Monterey Herald. What's worth more, $23 million for political ads, or 2 tweets from President Donald Trump? The top 2 primary election for California's next governor could provide an answer tomorrow, as former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa and Republican businessman John Cox grapple for second place and a ticket to the November general election. The top 2 vote-getters advance, regardless of party affiliation. Every major public poll has shown Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom in the lead. But which of his rivals makes it into the general will shape the state's political scene over the next 5 months, with big implications on critical races down ballot. If Newsom and Cox advance, as most recent polls have predicted, it will presage a more traditional Democratic versus Republican face-off in November. Newsom would be heavily favored, although Cox would aim to sell himself as a no-nonsense small businessman, and argue that Newsom is too far to the left of the average Californian. If Villaraigosa gets into the general, he'd make history, with the state's first intra-party governor's election. It would likely be unpredictable and highly competitive, with supporters on both sides pouring tens or hundreds of millions of dollars into the contest. While the governor's race is the marquee contest on Tuesday, the returns will provide a buffet for political junkies on a scale California election watchers haven't seen in years. There are more than a half-dozen crucial congressional races up and down the state that could make or break Democrats' dreams of retaking the House. Senator Dianne Feinstein will earn her challenger, and voters will set the stage in other statewide elections. In the Bay Area, voters will decide the fate of a high-profile recall of a judge who faced national scorn for his relatively lenient sentencing of a college student convicted of sexual assault, along with several other hard-fought races for district attorney and sheriff. They'll also decide on referendums about raising regional tolls to pay for transit projects and spending more on parks. But the top of the ticket race will set the stage for November. Villaraigosa and Cox each have their own wild card, big money support and tweets from the president. In order for Villaraigosa to make it into the top 2, he needs strong turnout, especially among Latino voters, election observers say. He's been aided by a wave of ads paid for by an independent group bankrolled by pro-charter school billionaires like Netflix CEO Reed Hastings and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, which has raised roughly $23 million over the last 2 months. Unions have also put in about $5 million supporting Newsom. Mindy Romero, director of the California Civic Engagement Project at UC Davis, said Latino turnout was typically lower in midterm primaries. Villaraigosa needs the Latino vote to overperform this primary, that's pretty clear, she said. Cox, who has put more than $4 million of his own money in the race, has risen in the polls since Trump tweeted 2 endorsements of him last month, helping him consolidate GOP support. Opposition to the president has also sparked anti-Trump activism in the Golden State. State Treasurer John Chang declared himself the anti-Trump in an interview in Oakland last week. Republican Assemblyman Travis Allen has done the opposite, reminding GOP voters that he's the only candidate who voted for the president in 2016. Cox went for Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson, a decision he now says he regrets. Delane Easton, the former state schools chief, tried to distance herself from her male opponents, releasing a late ad vowing to smash the patriarchy. On the other hand, the imperative of responding to the ever-present drumbeat of news from the Trump administration has also made it more difficult for the hopefuls to focus on their own proposals and platforms. It's Trump this, Trump that. It's zigzag, this whirling dervish of just trying to run down the rabbit hole of the afternoon, Newsom told reporters last week. Everything is shaped in contrast to Donald Trump. The race has also been sidetracked by the head-scratching game theory of the top two primary system. Newsom's campaign has worked to prop up Cox with ads highlighting his candidacy, in order to guarantee an easier general election, tactics that Villaraigosa argues will hurt other Democrats in crucial down-ballot races. Supporters of Villaraigosa, meanwhile, have tried to elevate Allen in order to split the GOP vote. If two Democrats make it to the general election, some activists argue, it would boost the party's turnout down ballot, potentially helping Democrats retake the House nationally. But others, including Newsom, argue that a Dem versus Dem contest would sap those crucial races of resources and attention. The state would be in uncharted territory, said Gary South, a strategist who's worked with both Newsom and Villaraigosa in the past. Despite the complicated machinations of the top two system, the candidates returned to old-school retail politics as they barnstormed the state over the past week, hobnobbing at union halls and conservative gatherings, rushing between church services, snapping selfies at gay bars and wolfing down ice cream cones and tacos and chili bowls. Villaraigosa had the most packed schedule, fitting 14 appearances into a non-stop 24-hour tour of LA last week. If people come out and vote and we have a high turnout, I'm going to get into the runoff, he predicted while dropping in on Warriors fans Sunday at San Pedro Square Market in San Jose. If they don't, it's going to be a long night. Despite their differences, the candidates in the waning hours before Election Day have all hammered home the message that California's income gap and affordability crises is becoming more and more untenable. Newsom argued in an interview in Oakland on Saturday that the most worrying sign for the Golden State was the disappearance of its middle class. There is no society in the world that's ever survived being a two-class society for very long. It implodes, it collapses upon itself, he said, summoning up visions of third-world countries where kids with machine guns are needed to protect consumers going about their daily errands. Likewise, Villaraigosa asserted Sunday in San Jose that the biggest divisions in the state today aren't the traditional divide between North and South but between the rich California that's left the poor California behind. There's nothing more important than trying to figure out how you make an economy that's not working for so many people, he said. Cox hit on similar themes. The middle class in this state is almost non-existent, he declared on Fox News this weekend. Where they disagree is how to solve the problem. Newsom and Villaraigosa have called for new government investments in education and affordable housing. There aren't that many clear policy differences between the two former mayors, or between them and the other Democrats. One of the few issues where Newsom and Villaraigosa have diverged, for example, is how far they've gone in endorsing a plan to guarantee single-payer government health care, and even that debate has been over a question of scale. Cox and Allen, meanwhile, have argued that California needs to slash regulations and taxes to help its economy grow. They've especially zeroed in on the repeal of a recently enacted hike in the state's gas tax. You might also, like ESM, go to MPs, clear PM Lee of allegations or censure. Business Times MSIA to dismiss 17,000 state workers, reduce. Business Times NBA star Stephen Curry selling $3.7 million Bay Area mansion. Global Mathither stress tests Malaysia-Singapore relations. Nikkei Asian Review Unlimited data calls. SMSEs from $35 per MTH for 4. Singtel on this Smart Local exclusive interview with the brains behind the Portfolio magazine. Janet Jackson calls police to check on son amid nasty. MercuryNews.com Melania Trump no longer missing, she's to be at. MercuryNews.com teacher charged for feeding live puppy to snapping. MercuryNews.com recommended by